man, this is tough. And either way, I'm going to get a negative text from one of them. So you put me in the hot seat now.
All right, our guest today needs no introduction. But for the 3 international listeners that watching this or listening to this, could you please tell them who you are and how did you get to where you are in 30 seconds?
My name's Dillon Boucher. I grew up playing the game like most New Zealand kids do, playing in the backyard with my brothers, and that went on to playing representative basketball. Started my journey in a little town called Bell Block in Taranaki, and then later for Papatoetoe in Auckland. Paved my way through school and made the national junior team once I left school, and started playing for Auckland at the same time. And then kind of my journey took off in 2001 when I made the Tall Blacks, and then 2003 when the Breakers started in the league, in the Australian NBL. And then that was when I started as a full-time professional. And when my career ended, I ended up working in the Breakers and became the general manager there. And then when I left there, and I had a few years working with myself, and then just ended up in the CE role at Basketball New Zealand, and here I am.
Who handed you your first basketball, and why do you love the game?
I fell in love with the game. I played all sports growing up as a kid, and I grew up with 2 older brothers, and we had backyard battles and everything, not just basketball, whether it be rugby, soccer, tennis, you name it, we were playing it. And I grew up kind of semi-rurally, so we had a lot of land and we had a lot of places to explore, and everything was a competition between me and my brothers. And being the youngest, I was always usually on the receiving end of losses, and it toughened me up, or even if I got the upper hand, they would physically manhandle me, so I wouldn't be able to get the upper hand. And so I guess my first ball was handed to me by my parents, and then obviously training in the backyard with my brothers. And then eventually, being the youngest, I started playing on their teams, their older teams, because they needed extra players and things like that. And because I was the smallest, I always got given the ball to bring up the court and be the point guard. And so that's kind of where my journey started on a basketball court.
What is one of the most important lessons that you learned throughout your basketball career, and how does these lessons have influenced your approach outside of your basketball playing career?
Yeah, I think it's just hard work, man. Like, it's nothing, you can achieve nothing in sport and and off the court as well without working hard. I mean, it's always, something my dad always said to me, that you have to work hard to achieve results, and there's no shortcut, whether it be dieting or whether it be growing muscles, whether it be becoming good at sport, whether it be becoming successful in business. Nothing, you don't get there by fluke, by accident. You get there from hard work. And I was taught that at a young age, that if you worked hard, good things happen. And they always say, when you work hard, you create your luck. And then all of a sudden, good things start happening to you because you're working hard. And I truly believe that as a player, that was certainly my mantle, was to work harder than the person next to me. And I wish everybody had been taught that by their parents, that hard work, because there was far more talented people than me, but just didn't really understand how hard you needed to work to be successful.
What was one of the most memorable things that any of your mentor or coaches ever tell you that you still remember to this day?
The key thing for me was defense wins championships, and I wanted to always be cutting down the nets or holding up the trophy and being successful. And that if I wanted to get extra court time when I was a youngster, that I had to play defense. And so for me, it was about honing in on the defensive end and playing your role, and then hopefully that would help your team be successful to win championships. And Tab Baldwin was probably the first coach that really rewarded me for playing defense. And naturally, when a coach rewards you for something, you go harder at it because you want to play more court time and things like that. And so from a young age, I was getting the assignments to mark the American imports on the court, and trying to do everything I could to stop them either touching the ball or scoring. And from there, it kind of started for me that I understood that if I played well on the defensive end, that it didn't require me to do too much on the offensive end to be able to stay on the court. And so that's where it started. And then later on, I found out that I had a high basketball IQ, and I could read the game probably better than some people on the court. So started using that for my offensive game, and being able to facilitate for others, to put others in good positions to score and things like that.
You're literally the lord of the championship ring in New Zealand. So what was the most memorable games from your basketball career that you can remember?
Obviously, every championship has a special place, but I guess the one that stands out most for me was We won a championship down in Nelson, and I was playing for Waikato at the time. I got fouled right with I think it was zero point 0.7 seconds to go on the clock, and it was a tied ball game. And I got fouled and had to go to the free throw line. And for me, I wasn't a super reliable free throw shooter career wise. Probably like in the mid 50s to 60% kind of career free throw shooter. And so in my mind, I was like, all I need to do is make one, and then we've won the game, and the chance of them hitting a shot from the other end of the court would be very slim. So I made the first one. I remember making the first, and Pero Cameron came up to me and he said, "Make sure you miss the second, so the clock runs out." And I said, and arrogantly I said, "No, I want to make the second to show them I can make both." And so I made the second to keep the crowd quiet, and they inbounded the ball to Phil Jones, and he threw a 3/4 court hook shot, and it all but went in and nearly cost us the championship. So that was my lesson, that you never let your ego get bigger than the team. And I should have just missed the free throw and we would have won the championship on the spot, but I decided my ego to prove to the crowd that I could do more, and it nearly backfired. So luckily I can smile and tell that story now and not be one of agonizing proportions. But yeah, that was a pretty special moment, being able to sink the game-winning free throws to win a championship.
So the next question is kind of like a 3-part questions for you. It's a little bit personal. I hope you don't mind. But when did you get your first paycheck from playing basketball, and how much was it, and how did you spend it?
Funny story, actually. It's a really good story for players to read their contracts. So I remember signing a contract for Auckland, and I don't think it was my first year I played. I think I played for a couple of years, and I remember getting my contract, my first pay, and it was $50. And I went in and picked up my pay, and those were the days where you go in and pick up your pay, and it was in an envelope, and signed for it. So I signed for my envelope $50, and I was so excited that I was getting paid to play basketball, and that was my weekly wage, $50. And the next week I went in to pick it up, and they said, "Oh no, there's no pay for you." The lady said, "There's no pay for you." And I said, "Oh, that's unusual." So I remember I was with Pero Cameron at the time, and I was like, he picked up his pay, and his was a lot bigger than mine, trust me. And he said, "Oh, that's weird. Maybe that's all you're getting, And I was like, no, it's $50 a week, And then when I went back home and looked at my contract was $50 total for the season. So I learned really quickly to actually read the fine print in a contract, because it was $50, and really was just a token payment for me to play basketball. And so that's the league has come a long way from where it was back in those days, and in the early 90s. And for me it was a cool moment, though. And no matter how small it was, I mean, I wasn't playing the game because I wanted money. I was playing the game because I loved it, and it was another opportunity for me to progress my skills.
How did you spend that $50?
To be honest, we went and spent it on food straight away, as you do, and a hungry kind of 19, 20-year-old, and always hungry. So we went and got a feed. I remember that. We went and spent it all, I think, and probably put like some money and gas money in the car to get home. But it was, I was working at the time, so I did have a full-time wage with another job. So yeah, that became discretionary income.
What advice would you give a young player who's struggling to overcome obstacles and setbacks in their basketball career?
Yeah, the advice I'd give is everyone goes through it. Like everybody has internal demons that they deal with. And, I've had plenty of moments in my career where I've doubted myself, or I've doubted my ability. And, the easy option was to give up. But I decided to push through and believe in myself, and surround yourself with positive people that tell you the right things and encourage you to go for your dreams. And, I've been very lucky to have supportive parents and brothers, and now a supportive wife and children that allowed me to follow my dreams and allowed me to chase my dreams. And a lot of times those dreams were shattered by not being selected for teams and things like that. So the advice I'd have to people is don't give up. If you've got a dream, go and follow that dream. And sometimes you have to take the hard road to get there. It's not always a nice paved way. Sometimes you have to take the rocky road, or the road over the rivers and over the mountains to get there. But if you want it badly enough and you go after it, then at least give yourself the possibility to try and fulfill that dream.
Can you please discuss some of the significant changes for New Zealand basketball over the years, and how these changes impacted the game today?
New Zealand basketball was on a really, really strong trajectory from an early age, even in the 80s, when there was great sponsorship for the National League. We had fantastic American imports were coming down here, and they were dominating our leagues, but they were amazing players, and we managed to be able to get some top players down here playing, and so what that did is it increased the local talent. The local talent then became better and better, and guys like myself, I was a floor wiper watching these, the Benny Anthony seniors of the world going to work on the court and mopping up their sweat, and idolizing these guys and wanting to be like them. And so going home in the backyard, and as we talked about off air, going back in the backyard and emulating what they were doing in the game before, and trying to be as good as them and copy them. And then I remember getting VHS tapes from the States, and it was like Come Fly With Me, Michael Jordan, and we'd get NBA games sent over from friends of ours, and a lot of times you'd put them in your tape recorder and they didn't even work very well because it was the wrong speed, and like it was before the internet. It was hard to watch basketball, but we managed to get our hands on it, and just dreamed of being an NBA player. And then obviously, a teammate of mine, Sean Marks, making the NBA was the first time where it became like, wow, a New Zealander can make the NBA. And he kind of, I guess, fueled the dream of more kids to be able to want to play in the NBA. And then later on, Kirk Penny had a small stint in the NBA, and we were seeing more and more players going to the States on scholarships to the US and going to Division I colleges and having success. A guy like Mark Dickel. Mark Dickel led the whole of the NCAA, had led the nation in assists in his senior year. And, that's, when you think about that now, that's a Kiwi kid from, Dunedin leading the whole of the NCAA in assists in his senior years is phenomenal. And then Kirk Penny making the Final Four, and later, Jack Salt winning an NCAA championship. And, so those things are all real. And Shalise Ledger-Walker, what she's doing right now in the, in the NCAA is amazing for female athletes. And Megan Compain from making the WNBA. These are all pivotal moments for our sport that, it was harder back in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, where it wasn't as highly publicized, whereas now it's highly publicized. So now, you fast forward and you get to 2003 when the Breakers become, first professional team in New Zealand, and then go along and, win 4 championships and capture a nation. And go back to 2002, even before that, that started off the back of the Tall Blacks having success at a World Championships, in 2002 in Indianapolis, coming 4th in the world. And, I was privileged to be on that team. And I think that's where basketball people started taking it seriously, that, man, we're actually pretty good at basketball. And then the following year, the Breakers started, and then, this kid, Steven Adams, makes the NBA for 1 year out of college, and shows that there's another New Zealander is paving the way in the NBA. And you look at his career and where that's gone and what he's been able to do for sport. And so now the sport is so accessible through YouTube and social media that kids can see anything they want with a basketball. So and kids are falling in love with it. And so you're seeing the game grow at a community level, and we're seeing these talented athletes that are going over to college and playing in Division I colleges, going into these NBA global academies. And we're going to see more and more kids, New Zealand kids, in the WNBA and the NBA. There's more opportunities. We've got more female athletes in college than we have male. So that's our female side of the game is so strong right now. And we've just had a Tall Ferns team named, and those, some young names on there that, still in high school, that are going to be talents to watch. And there's girls in college that haven't made that team that will be in that team in the next year or two. So there's so many exciting opportunities for our game. And I think now the game is so global that kids growing up want to be like their idols, and they want to be like these kids and going off to college and making the NBA and making the Tall Ferns and Tall Blacks. And, there's so many opportunities to be able to do that. And for me personally, that I've noticed that at pivotal moments where our sport takes another leap, we won a Hellberg Award in 2001, then we won the overall, I think, in 2002. So like, these are all crucial moments in our sport that basically show other sports people that basketball's coming, man. It's growing, and there's so many people now involved in it, and I think the numbers will continue to grow when we continue to provide opportunities for them to be able to go and have success outside of just playing for their club or their representative team.
Here comes the fun part. You're obviously well known to be one of the toughest players on the court. As the CEO of Basketball New Zealand, if you could have any basketball player as your personal bodyguard, who would that be and why?
There's probably only one other person than Piero Cameron that I would choose. If it was someone in New Zealand, it would be Piero Cameron, hands down, because not only is he a good friend of mine, but he's superhuman strength. That people see him for his basketball skills and what he could do on the court, but the guy's superhuman strength. The only person that I think would possibly trump Piero, or they might have to have an arm wrestle to win this, would be Shaq. I think Shaq's hilarious. I think not only would he be a great bodyguard, he'd be hilarious to be around. I just laugh when the guy talks. So yeah, Shaq would probably be the only person that could beat out Piero. But I would pay to see that arm wrestle. To be honest, I would pay to see it. And I know people are probably going, "Oh, Shaq would kill Piero." I'm telling you, he would not kill Piero in an arm wrestle. Like it would be a battle.
Obviously, you have been the GM before, and if you got given 3 players, who would you rather start, bench, and trade? Piero Cameron, Phil Jones, Kurt Penny.
Oh man, you're killing me. You're killing me here. Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. My star would be Piero. I mean, you go back to a guy who makes All-Star 5 at a World Championship. I don't care who you are. You don't fall upon that gets bestowed upon you. But the other 2 guys, Phil and Kirk, man, these guys are guys I've gone to war with and we've battled internationally. I mean, I don't know if I could. Man, this is tough. And either way, I'm going to get a negative text from one of them. So you put me in the hot seat now. I know Phil Jones has been he's been able to play a 6-man role, and I haven't seen Kirk do that. So I would say, yeah, I would put Phil on the bench, and I would trade Kirk, because Kirk's such a nice guy. He could never be angry at you. So even if you traded him, he's still not going to be too angry at you. So I figure we could keep our friendship even if I traded him.
Could you name your top 5 toughest defenders of all time?
The one who comes to mind, I think, is a guy that not many people listening will probably know unless you follow the NBL, and that's Damian Martin. And Damian Martin he's won Defensive Player of the Year so many years in the Australian NBL, and I was fortunate enough one year, somehow I managed to beat him out for that title, and then maybe he must have been injured or something that year, I don't know, but the award probably is named after him, actually. I think it could be even. He was an amazing defender and tough and uncompromising, and just put his body on the line. And we had to, generally every championship at the Breakers, we had to battle through Perth, and he was always, someone that was tough and uncompromising as a defender. But I think someone that's slowly paving the way defensively, it's hard to go past the Tom Abercrombie, who's been a great defender his whole career. Isaiah Liafa, who's with the Breakers now, is also an amazing defender, and I think he's going to get better the more experience he gets. So New Zealand tends to produce great defenders, and that's oftentimes you need that superstar defender that can go on the best player on another team and really work them over. And it's often an underrated job, but someone's got to do that. So hard to pick 5, but those names there would be 3 guys that are pretty tough. And I think back to our early days, and the 2 names that jump out at me are Mark Dickel and Paul Henare. Again, 2 amazing defenders, both in different ways. Sparky had a knack of just being fast and be able to turn you in the backcourt, but Paulie had both strength and speed and guts. So those are guys that if you were going to war with on a defensive team, and I realize I've named 4 point guards in my All-Star 5 defensive lineup, and there's a lot of guys like you can't go past dudes like Mika Vakona. Like, how are you going to forget a guy like that in a conversation? But there's so many guys you could name in this. Guys that I've been fortunate enough to play with and play alongside and see do amazing things on the defensive end of the court, and also played against them and had to deal with their tenacity on the other side of things. And so those guys there are guys that I think are elite in their category.
How do you see basketball evolving in New Zealand for the next 5 to 10 years? And what role do you see basketball in New Zealand play in the evolution?
Yeah, I see Basketball New Zealand playing a huge role in that. And, one of the things that, we want to achieve at Basketball New Zealand is we want to create more opportunities for those that want to play the game, whether it be from a community level, social level, right up to a high performing level. You know, we want to have the sport that's accessible for everybody, all ethnicities, all abilities, all disabilities. You know, we want to make sure that our sport is fully inclusive to anyone who wants to play it. We want to create those opportunities within, like I say, from a community level, social level, even not even a structured level. You know, we've got so many of these outdoor hoops at the moment, and the stuff we're putting in more and more of these hoops. We want to engage those people to be involved in basketball, and create opportunities for them. And then obviously those that go through structured participation through our associations, through rep basketball, through our schools, is create those opportunities. And then those that choose to go on a performance level and then on to a high performance level, we want to make sure the opportunities we've got for them are there and available for them to take with both hands. And then from there, naturally, those ones will drift into our national programs and be able to create their pathways to be able to have easy access to be able to get into those teams, both from a playing, from an officials, from a coaching perspective. We want to cut across everything to make sure that we're developing, you know, everything from score bench statisticians, volunteers, right up to make sure the pathway is full complete, that everyone in every stage has got a clear pathway of how they're going to move forward.
Amazing. That's all the time we got today. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem, Davey. My pleasure, mate.
Shout out to Kiwi Hoopers. Shout out to Kiwi Hoopers.